Welcome everyone to the show. Salute Knicks Nation. The streets are buzzing. Smash that like button because today we talk to the one, the only, the legend, Bill DAUGHTRY, kind enough to hop on again, talk all things Knicks as we head towards the new year. Happy holidays to everyone out here. Blessings, and hope everybody's doing well. And it's going to be a fun show tonight. Bill, it's a pleasure to talk.
CT, always good to be with you, my man. Always. Happy New Year. Merry Christmas.
Yes.
Happy Hanukkah. Happy Kwanzaa. Did I miss anything? If I did, happy.
Yeah. Happy, A smile is the translation of happiness.
It's that time of year.
In any language. And we're trying to spread some cheer to Knicks Nation. We're going to talk about all topics tonight. I wouldn't expect anything less, but salute to the chat. First and foremost, we'll talk about it, shout you out, answer questions, things like that. Once we cover everything, Bill's always generous. And Knicks Nation strong out here worldwide, as we know. And Bill, lots to talk about. Since we last spoke, the Knicks are back at 500 again. That was the topic of the last show, and it's like a magnet.
It's all about the quality of the competition. I mean, after you have an 8-game winning streak against some of the lesser lights, even though Cleveland and Atlanta aren't anybody's lesser lights, after that 8-game winning streak, you figure that the Knicks are pointed in the right direction. Okay, you're going to lose a game here and there, but 5 straight, that's a bit much to take. I thought last night they would win that game against San Antonio, but as we all saw, they came out, they had zero energy. There was only 2 guys who were playing on the Knicks. Actually 3. Julius Randle with a 40-burger, 36 from Emmanuel Quickly, and look who showed up after 6 weeks on the bench. Fournier comes out and gives you some points and some quality minutes. I don't know why Tom Thibodeau didn't go farther with him, find more use for him. Everybody still wants to know, what did Cam Reddish do? Look, I get it, the 9-man rotation. I understand. But now you've got injuries to 2 key players. Seems to me you want to stretch this bench out as far as you can and do what you have to do to get a win. Coming off of that loss in Dallas, these guys were physically and emotionally spent. The power of a single rebound, huh? Because if Quentin Grimes gets both hands on it and holds on to it, the conversation, well, it's not a 5-game losing streak. So it's all relative, and it's all on the table because there are a lot of Knicks fans that just think it's time for Tom Thibodeau to pack his bag and leave. Then there's still a lot that don't think that that's the case, and that's an interesting conundrum in itself. But I'm one of those look, I understand who you are, I understand what you are, but you go through the most successful coaches in the history of this league. They don't coach to a system, they coach to their talent. And Thibodeau's system, 9-man rotation, you got guys playing 50 minutes the other night in Dallas. And now you got to come back. You had a day off. Mitchell Robinson had absolutely nothing last night.
Nothing.
He had zero. And I mean, he had a great game in that loss in Dallas, 20-16, block shots and the whole 9, and he was a force in the paint. But it's the small things now. It's the small things that are going to take you to that next level, whatever it is. Julius Randle, if you got any problems with Julius Randle, other than him losing his mind sometimes and dribbling into the defense on more than one occasion, the guy is bringing it every night. He is balling out, as we like to say now. Okay, is he the smartest guy on the court? Is he the most reserved, focused? No. Julius Randle, it's like he plays like he takes it personally, which is a good thing when you have Jalen Brunson as a calming influence next to you. But the last couple of games, they haven't had that. And while Julius has been outstanding, some of his faux pas have created problems. He's taken some bad fouls. He dribbles into the defense way too much. Sometimes he passes to the wrong man when he does passes. Again, I'm not knocking this player, but these are the warts that you have to deal with when you deal with Julius Randle. I like him. I like him in the lineup. I like what he's doing, but he needs a certain amount of control. You have to rein him in on certain levels to get the most out of him. And when Jalen Brunson's not on the floor, I'm not so sure that happens. And he's a good leader. Don't get me wrong. He is a good leader because he's the guy now with Jalen out that's going to call these guys together. Look, this is what we got to do. Look, this is what's on the table. Look, I need you to do this. You do. And you saw that a couple of times last night against San Antonio. You saw it a few times against Dallas. So, he is, as some people would like to say, a necessary evil. The Knicks would be totally lost without him right now. Another fine performance last night, but they get nothing to show for it.
Yeah, you got to look at the wins within the wins and losses this season. And like you said about Thibs, you've got to know your weaknesses and your strengths of your roster coming in. I feel like, obviously, the Dallas one, we'll talk about that a little bit more, Bill, because I'm not sure if you've seen a crazier loss, but to me, the Toronto and the Chicago ones, I look back on them like, you got to take care of business at home for those ones. Wins on the road are never promised.
That home thing has been an issue for the Knicks all year long, and until this road trip, they were one of the best road teams in the NBA. But you talk about little things. Go back to the Dallas game. JaVale McGee played 2 minutes and 46 seconds in that game. In overtime. In other words, another big to keep the Knicks out of the paint, to create more problems for Mitchell Robinson, along with a couple other guys that they already had in. Wood was one that was playing very well, and number 7, his name escapes me at the moment, but you had 3 bigs on the floor for Dallas with Luka and another shooter. And that's what got it done. But that 2 minutes and 43 seconds that JaVale McGee was on the floor, it changed the way the Knicks had to do business. It changed the way, and again, we ain't talking about guys that are out of the rotation. You got a 7-footer. You need some rim security. You need somebody to help keep people from just getting their feet wet in the paint at the most important time of the game. Look what happened.
Yep. No, you said it, man. You said it. I'm just getting some comments that the music's still playing, but it's finished on my end, so...
I don't hear it.
You don't hear it? No. I don't hear any music either.
I hear the music of CT. So. CT is buzzing.
Yeah. Okay, we'll work through it anyway. But yeah, I appreciate everyone rocking with us. Tech difficulties happen, but I'll get this music shut off any way I can. But yeah, like you said, five losses in a row now after 8 wins in a row. I mean, talk about helter skelter, Bill. What do the Knicks got to do now to get back to winning ways? Is it more a health situation? Is it bringing this rotation and extending the minutes more? What do you think happens now in Houston, especially if Brunson looks like he might rest again? Because I think it's a wise decision to rest Brunson.
You want to get Brunson right, and I think the issue as they go to Houston will be the same issue as it was in San Antonio. Knicks played no defense the other night. They played no defense last night. San Antonio was having their way with them. Mike Breen called it out early in the broadcast. No, by the way, my boy Alan Hahn, he knocked it out of the park in Houston, rather in Dallas, and he knocked it out of the park again last night in San Antonio. So, long overdue opportunity for Allen. He's making the most of it. I think he's great. If you haven't seen him, check him out in this role. He's doing a fine job as the analyst while Clyde takes his annual hiatus, and that, of course, is well-deserved too. But again, Mike Breen called it out early in the broadcast last night. Knicks weren't defending. And not to point out, not to single out anybody, but we mentioned Mitchell Robinson earlier. He was just like toast. He had no legs. He had no jump. He had nothing. And San Antonio pretty much just got in the paint and did what they wanted to do all night long, which is not what usually happens against the New York Knicks. It definitely hasn't happened during that 8-game winning streak when they were hanging their hat on defense and holding teams under 100 points. Okay, I get what happened in Dallas. I get it. Luke is one of the great players, and really, the strategy even worked there. It was fine. The only thing that didn't happen was Quentin Grimes couldn't hold on to that rebound. Because they wanted Luka. They didn't want him to take a three, so they fouled him. Okay, he made that first free throw. Now he's got to miss the second one. All you have to do, your job is secure the rebound. And the Knicks couldn't do that. And that's what ultimately cost them the game.
Yep, I'm here.
Again, they couldn't secure a rebound. And you talk about the small things. Now look at the dam that has burst open. You get that rebound, 3-game losing streak over. Everybody's doing what they need to do. You go on to San Antonio, a winnable game. You're in a different mindset. Your energy is totally different. This is even with the injuries. Because, R.J. Barrett going down in the opening seconds of the Dallas game, that was, wow. Nobody saw that coming.
No.
Nobody saw that coming. But this team played marvelously without him. They soldiered on. And again, Grimes did everything right in that game. A career game for Quentin Grimes, but it's a bad memory because why? Couldn't secure a rebound, and he had his hands on, by the way.
Yeah, a lot of people point to that, but I'm looking at subbing in an extra center. That's just fundamentals, I feel, from the coach. And yes, a lot of people said the Knicks 2 players had their hands on the ball. That's true, but both things can be true at the same time.
Yes.
Because before it ricocheted to Grimes and McBride, Julius and Christian Wood were the first 2 to touch the ball.
Correct.
So if you have Mitchell Robinson and Jericho Sims instead of Julius Randle, maybe.
Or even instead of Deuce McBride. Instead of McBride. I get it. It's a situation where Dallas is going to foul. You know what? I'm just going to have to roll the dice there because the most important thing is I need to get that basketball. And Thibodeau decided to go small. He's already small because he's got a couple of guys out. Again, some of what he is doing from a coaching standpoint, it bothers me. It gets under my skin, particularly with this rotation business. If a guy can play, if you can find a spot where a guy can help you out, rotation professionals, they are all professionals. That's what bugs me about him. And if he goes out, wins a couple of games, all is fine again. Nobody has any issues with the coach. But when you have what has happened in the last 72 hours, 2 painful losses, one where you really weren't competitive in, people are going to talk, man. That makes the streets buzz, CT.
No, definitely. X's and O's, closing out games was the big talking point heading into this season. Even the best of them crumble down the stretch. The biggest one was also Quentin Grimes getting trapped. Calling a timeout. Calling a timeout would have been nice with the refs. The refs did call a quick jump ball on that one, Bill.
That was another questionable play, another questionable call. It's like, really? It was like one Mississippi jump ball. Really? There was no struggle. There was no back and forth. It's like 2 guys touch the ball. Jump ball. What? Again, that's we're mincing hairs here, man. We're splitting hairs. The bottom line is get the rebound, and it's a different conversation. He didn't. So now you've got the injury woes because it looks like Brunson and Barrett are still going to be out at Houston tomorrow. Obi Toppin, I'm really concerned about that injury. He said all the right things. His rehab is
Yeah,
coming along very slowly. He's just progressing nicely, but there's no timetable for him to come back. You cracked the end of a bone in your leg. That's what this injury is. And
yeah,
the way that he plays, as soon as he comes back in, he's going to start flying again, and that bone's going to crack again. I'm more concerned about this than a lot of people are, but hopefully it all works out for Obi and he gets that second contract, because as we all know, at the end of this year, it's up. What's he going to do? So this is a tough time for him right now, from a career standpoint.
yeah. No, it definitely is. I was asking one of my co-hosts EJ about Quickly and Obi moving ahead, and 1 year from now, it's going to be a big situation. Can the Knicks keep both? One, the other. Quickly's playing really, really well now. Obi was playing well. I'd like to see the Knicks keep both. What do you feel like happens with those
I
two?
think Quickly is a lock.
Yeah,
But let me backtrack, because let's see what's going to happen with the coach. I don't know if the coach is on thin ice or anything like that, but I think next year is the final year of his contract. And when you get to that final year, well, now, before you get there, you got to start talking about, okay, what's the future going to be? And it's really interesting what's going on in Atlanta right now. The stuff with Nate McMillan, who had to emphatically go on the record and say, I'm not retiring mid-season. Now, what's he going to do at the end of the year is anybody's guess. But
yep,
some of the statements he made, very telling about how today's players, they look at the game differently, they approach the game differently, they not just play it differently, but they just have a different mindset about this stuff. And you look back to when Nate McMillan was a player, everybody likes to talk about the glove, Gary Payton, Gary Payton, Gary Payton. I'll argue that Nate McMillan was every bit as important defensively as Gary Payton was on those great Sonics teams back in the early and mid-90s, because Nate McMillan could defend 1, 2, and 3. He had size and strength, and when the ball landed in his hands, he knew what to do with it. He wasn't an awful shooter. He wasn't a bad shooter. He was in the mid to low 40s percentage-wise, but he had that defense-first mentality, no matter if he was at the 1, the 2, or the 3. And he gets into this dust-up with Trae Young about pretty much nothing. Either the guy can play or he can't play. And it just blows up and gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And now it's come to, well, is he going to quit during the middle of the season? Well, he says no, he's not. But I would not be surprised if at the end of this year, Nate McMillan doesn't return to the Atlanta Hawks. Now, it's not that kind of situation here in New York. I'm not going to say the players love Tom Thibodeau, but they still play for him, and they play hard for him, and they have little to nothing negative to say about him, about his rotation. We always talk about the professionalism of Evan Fournier. You can even apply that to Cam Reddish. These guys haven't played in 6 weeks. Haven't heard a peep from either one of them. And last night, when Fournier got in, he gave you 11 points. I think he played 16 minutes. I'm just curious as to a team that is starved for offense right now, why he couldn't stretch that out a little bit more, especially when you're playing guys 45 and 50 minutes, as he has done in the past few games with Quickly and company.
Yeah. I think, to be honest, if I'm just trying to think of what Thibodeau's rationale is the 8-game win streak. They won with a shortened rotation, and the trust he has in McBride, Grimes, etc. Where I think the Knicks really struggle more is the Sims-Hartenstein pairing. Lack of offense, and Hartenstein and Sims gives you the rebounding that you need and can score close to the bucket. I really feel like Hartenstein out, Cam Reddish in would have been the best situation for defense, offense.
Well, I can't say what would be with Cam Reddish right now. Like you said, he hasn't played in 6 weeks. He's nowhere near the shooter that Evan Fournier is. Fournier, when he comes in the game, what's he going to do? He's going to put it up. And there were a couple of times where he kind of hesitated or he passed the ball instead of, man, you got the shot, take it.
Yeah.
Now, what Cam Reddish, more of a slasher, not a good 3-point shooter. He does give you some defense, but Cam Reddish is like, he's a guy that he'll come in and he'll make 2 great plays in 5 minutes, and you fall in love with him, and then you don't see a great play for the next 2 or 3 games. So, I'm not saying that he's going to save the world, but he can give you some minutes to give guys a break, to help you change up your rotation, to help you change up a strat, to throw something at the other team that they haven't seen or weren't expecting. That's part of winning also, the element of surprise. I'm not saying you got to ride him for like 25, 30 minutes, but JaVale McGee gave you 2 minutes and 46 seconds of rebounding and defense in a game you won in overtime.
Yep. Trusting in your roster. And I wonder what, the front office is really evaluating here, Bill, because they're the ones that bring in pieces. They bring in Fournier. They traded for Reddish, kind of situation. Maybe what Leon Rose said in his interview with Allen about no edicts, that's showing true. Tom Thibodeau really has full control of this thing, but for how long?
It's interesting is I go back to the days of Donnie Walsh and Glenn Grunwald. Those 2 guys, they were open books. They would sit down, they would talk with you, they'd tell you what they were thinking, what might happen, what might not happen. Leon Rose is the exact opposite. I mean, he came out and he had not a news conference, but a one-on-one with Alan Hahn, a company sit down, a company stop and chat. Okay, and I mean, he said all the predictable things, and then you don't hear from him again. You didn't hear a peep from him last year until that interview, which was prior to this season. And here we are midway through another season. You still haven't heard anything. And this team has been up, down, yo-yo, in and out. You don't know what anybody's thinking. You don't even know what the Knicks want to do with the trade deadline, if they want to do anything. And before these 2 injuries, I've had this conversation with a couple of people.
Yep.
There is no team in the NBA that is good enough. And I'll say this again. No team in the NBA can have 3 dead spots on their roster.
No.
And until these injuries, Rose, Fournier, and Reddish, the 3 dead spots, because they weren't playing. They were wearing sweats every night, warm-ups every night. Whatever you did in pregame, that was your game. No team in the league is good enough to have 3 dead spots on their roster. What are they going to do with these guys? You'll hear the trade talks and the rumors from time to time regarding Emmanuel Quickly, but like I said earlier, I don't think he's going anywhere. I think the guys that you can get that might be able to help you bring in a player to help you change the direction of this team, help give you some help in an area where you could really use it. I think that player comes from the 3 dead spots on your roster, but we haven't heard anything about that.
Yeah, we will. There's suitors for Cam with that situation. And I'm kind of thinking, Bill, that they'll bring it closer to the deadline to increase the bidding war between Miami, maybe Milwaukee, Dallas, LA. My only concern is playing Cam in these minutes, and if he does well, that could have boosted some value there.
Well, I think that Cam had his preview, as they like to say, when he was in the starting lineup for that handful of games. And he was as inconsistent as he has ever been. What does Cam Reddish do that makes somebody else say, gotta have him? Because right now, kid's a project. Can't say it any other way. He's got talent, but you just have to figure out, okay, what talent fits our situation best? What is it? I mean, the NBA is a league of specialists. It really is. They're the greatest players in the world, but they're a league of specialists. They all have something or some things that they do well and can do them on demand. They can do them whenever their team needs them. What is that thing that Cam Reddish has? What is it? And I think that's really the dilemma when it comes to finding a trading partner. Fournier obviously has value. He can shoot the lights out of any gym when he's right. But he's got that $18 million price tag, or that contract that you got to carry on for the next year or so. Rose, expiring $14 million deal. What would he fit in Chicago? If Ball can't come back, you saw the great reception that he got. Would Derrick Rose fit short term just to get Chicago to the finish line? Chicago, one of those teams behind the Knicks, although not very far now. Only, I think it's a game and a half because Atlanta's right behind them. So is that what you do? Do you want to trade him to somebody who could literally take you out in your quest for a playoff spot?
Yeah, you're right. Cam is a depth piece, but I think basically against the Spurs, we really miss the size.
Yes.
Deuce McBride at the 2. I mean, Keldon Johnson, they had their way, but Coach Pop played a great scheme. Great coach. I just love their ball movement, their player movement, and it was a lot of standing around last night, Bill, when Julius was trying to go to work. No one was really moving.
No.
Yep.
No.
That's what I.
And again, Thibodeau he's fallen in love with playing small, especially in the wake of the injuries. I have nothing against Deuce McBride, but again, I need length, especially against a team like San Antonio, where it seems like everybody had a 7-foot wingspan last night. Everybody was bigger. Everybody was in the paint. Everybody was scoring baskets at ease, up close.
Yeah.
And the Knicks were powerless to keep these guys out of the paint. And that's where size comes in, and maybe that's where Cam Reddish could have contributed defensively last night, but we'll never know because last night is gone. Now it's on to Houston, another young, hungry, up-and-coming team, and they're going to see the Knicks limping into their building, and there's blood on the water already at the summit of the Toyota Center.
Not trying to be negative, but I'm not expecting a win tomorrow. I mean, I picked Houston as being the tougher game, but one other issue I've had, Bill, recently is all season is guarding the 3-point ball. The modern NBA's changed, Bill, and we just seem to be allowing, even helping on the dribble drive and leaving a corner shooter wide open, whereas I prefer a player to stay on the corner shooter. Giving up a 2-pointer is better in the modern NBA than giving up a wide open 3-point look. What are your thoughts on giving up the 3-point ball? Because that's my fundamentally issue with Thibodeau.
Well, go back to the Chicago game. Everybody knew who was getting the ball for the last possession, and it wasn't going to be a 3-pointer. And what did DeMar DeRozan do? Make the shot and get fouled. So, I mean, look, it's about coaching philosophy. The 3-point shot is the lower percentage shot, but everybody shoots it. Everybody shoots it in volume. It's an open 3 as opposed to an open 2 is a bigger gamble, bigger risk, bigger reward. And today the league has moved toward the bigger gamble end of the spectrum. And it should be noted that, and this is for a few years now, the NBA has been playing with the 3-point shot longer than they played with the 2-point shot.
Yeah, because of the 3-point play.
Well, no, I'm talking about the 3-point shot.
Oh,
That's been in vogue since 1980. And that's 40 years now. The NBA was a 2-point league from 1947 to 1979. And when the 79-80 season came along, that's when the 3-point shot was allowed. So the NBA has been a 3-point league a lot longer now than it was a 2-point league, or as they used to call it back in the day of Red Auerbach, brown ball.
Yeah. Yep.
So, I mean, everybody should have made the adjustment by now. And again, it's do you go for the home run or do you go for the opposite field double? That's the big difference between the 2-point shot and the 3-point shot. You defend the arc, you defend the line when you have to. But most of the time, guys like DeMar DeRozan, guys like Luka Doncic, Luka didn't do his damage from 3-point range, did he? He was a
Nope.
mid-range killer
Death
the
by
other
a
night in
thousand
Dallas.
cuts.
Okay? So,
Yep.
I mean, to me, the game is still about those things. That 3-point thing, that's a philosophy, that's a dilemma, that's something. It's a tool that you have at your disposal. Because you go back to the birth of the 3-point shot in the ABA. It wasn't like it is today in the NBA. Most teams had one or two guys who were 3-point specialists, and pretty much nobody else on the team took a 3-point shot. But now, everybody takes them. Everybody takes them in volume, 5 a game, 6 a game, whatever the number. You've seen some of the biggest 3-point attempt nights in the history of the game this season against the New York Knicks. They've had, 3 games where the opponent shot more than 50 3-pointers in the game?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's risk reward. But to me, and I think to a lot of coaches and players in the NBA, the game is still that 2-point bread and butter game. As the late Bill Russell said, the winners of basketball games are the guys that get the most high percentage shots. The 2-point shot, particularly the dunk, the layup, as it were, the mid-range jumper from 15 feet in, those are high percentage shots. Not that 22, 23-foot shot that specialists used to take way back in the day. Now everybody takes them. And everybody just wants to take that bigger risk. And a lot of times, I mean, how many years have we had the transition 3 in the game? How many times now during a game do you see somebody get 5 feet from the basket and kick it out to somebody for a 3-pointer? It's the game now. So you've got to figure out what your philosophy is, and you've got to defend all of it. And one of the other problems with the Knicks is when they have to shoot threes to get back in the game, they are not very good. No. Early in the game, they knock them down. Early in the game, they make it rain. But you get in the fourth quarter and you're 7 or 8 points down, and now the Knicks feel we got to shoot threes. That's when they fall apart. That's when they look awful on offense. That's when they do a lot of their standing around.
Yeah. I just think there's too much emphasis on protecting the paint, because you invest in, your philosophy is around having a shot blocker like Mitch, a guy who can own the paint and be there in case dribble penetration and the defense breaks down. But then you've got 3 or 4 extra guys all moving in to the key like a magnet and leaving shooters open. If you want a rim protector, why go that route? You know,
because you got to have help defenders. Nobody's capable of doing anything by themselves, and there's a flip side to that argument too. Because after the Dallas game, it's like, why don't you double Luka? You weren't doubling him in the big spots. They did double him at various points in the game. When it mattered most, not so much. So again, all this stuff comes down to philosophy. It all comes down to your philosophy, the talent that you have, and how you want to approach an opponent. And that's on both sides of the ball. And as we started at the top of the conversation, I'm not comfortable with a lot of the things Tom Thibodeau does.
Yep. No, that's like a lot of the fan base. Now, with that said, Jalen Brunson's impact, we've obviously missed him. I'm glad they didn't rush him back, Bill. But how have you seen his season so far, and what does it mean for this organization moving forward with having that point guard now, Jalen Brunson? Because there are a large portion of this fan base that have more highlighted his weaknesses with length and being closed down in some of these games. But I think they're also ignoring the fact that this is an incomplete roster so far, and with more help, I think Jalen Brunson, who's playing that number 1 lead role, is ideally in the Knicks' plans in their future. Jalen Brunson shouldn't be the Knicks' number 1 role.
I don't have any issues with Jalen, although when he tweaked his foot, and I want to say it was against Sacramento, don't hold me down on that, but I think that's when it happened. He tweaked his foot, and ever since then, the injury bug is starting to manifest itself. and the style of play where he just puts his body on the line all the time, defensively. Offensively, teams crowd him. Teams like Atlanta, teams like Cleveland, they crowd him, they trap him, they blitz him. They don't give him room to operate, and those teams have been most successful against him. And I think, now this rest is going to do him good. It's involuntary rest, but I think he's going to come back better. He's going to come back stronger. He's going to come back looking more like the guy you saw in the first third of this basketball season, because he's been having his problems. We all know. He missed some free throws in that Chicago game. It's like, really? Jalen Brunson? I mean, he's been a great distributor. He's been a great teammate. His character, his leadership, all of that is something that was badly missing from this New York Knicks team. And the Knicks' big three, which is Brunson, Barrett, and Randle. This team was rolling when all three of them were on the floor together. Now two of the three are out. And that's what this was one of the points I made about Thibodeau earlier. I don't see that mad scientist. That guy's got to be in there somewhere. When stuff starts to get crazy and it's not scripted, now I want to see, okay, what you got in your bag? Show me some tricks. If you can't beat them, trick them. Show me something that's going to make me see that A, you're stepping outside of the box, that B, you're stepping outside of the box to try and win a game, even if it's steal the victory or whatever, but you are doing something. And I don't see that element in him, and that bugs me.
Yeah, me too. Big 15, I said this roster has a lot of pieces. Even people, thinking that Svi Mikhailuk, who's a shooter, in desperate need, could play 8 minutes. I'm
not going to get down to Svi and Arky. I'm not going there. I'm not going there. On every NBA roster, like I said, there's a couple of guys that they're practice guys. That's why they're there.
True. Yep.
And I mean, Svi, he can shoot the ball. He can shoot it in practice. But what's he going to be like when the rubber meets the road? And I don't think Knicks fans want to see that just yet. We got to go through a lot more injuries before we get to that point. In garbage time, come in, light it up a little bit, hustle, impress the coach. That's fine. But a guy that you can count on, a guy that you can go to, a guy who can put the ball in his hands, a guy that you won't feel, he's got the ball. What's going to happen now? Okay? You got Fournier for that. Fournier's that guy now. So find a role for him. Svi, he's going to get a shot somewhere, somehow, sometime. But right now, and I may be totally wrong, he might get a call and come in and shoot the lights out 2 or 3 nights in a row. Go 5 for 7. Give me 3 of those games, and then we can have the Svi conversation. I'll even learn how to say his last name, Mahalik. But I'm not ready for that extreme. But with the 10, 11 guys that you have that are proven NBA players, you need to get creative with those guys.
Yeah, I just think in a dire need. I'm not saying long term. We're seeing a lot of these teams' issues. They're gassed right now, and a new body, a new life can give breathe injection and energy into everyone, and that leads us to Obi Toppin. I really think we're missing easy buckets off the bench. A lot of people make jokes that Obi leaks out. He's a cherry picker, but you need that. How many easy buckets did the Spurs get? Dallas get. It happens in the NBA when players are gassed. You need easy buckets.
Again, and I don't
and
know.
Just before you continue, I'm just going to jump back out, jump back in. So keep going.
Okay, yeah. I don't know if it was the beginning of the injury for Obi before he finally succumbed to it, but his play offensively had started to fall off a little bit. He wasn't making those open threes. He wasn't getting to the basket with any frequency. He was pretty much a non-factor, I want to say, in the 3 or 4 games before he had to finally sit down with that injury. Now, I don't know if it was the beginning of the fracture that was starting to change the way he was going about his business. It was starting to change his effectiveness, his efficiency. I don't know. But I think we can say with certainty that in the 3 or 4 games before he finally had to sit, before he finally came up with that limp that he couldn't get rid of, Obi's game was starting to fall off a little bit offensively, and I think that was a problem. But nobody really noticed because the Knicks were rolling. They were winning 8 in a row. Obi, get well soon, bro. We'll be here when you get back. But now, that, as you point out, CT, that's one of the things that they do miss. That easy basket, that cherry pick, that early release, so he can get down the floor before everybody else and just get an easy layup or a dunk.
Yeah,
little
definitely.
things. It's the little things.
It is. Well, he's probably the second best offensive player off the bench. But yeah, we're at 500. We're looking at the future and the road ahead. I keep saying this, Bill, to every Knicks fan. You got to judge players on the Knicks, and they always point out their flaws, but they're not in their ideal role. I think the Knicks are trying to clear up one more max slot to move Randle or Brunson to the 2 option, the 3 option, wait for RJ Barrett to develop more, and add a number 1 option. I don't see them trading Randle at this point. I don't see them trading Brunson or RJ. I think their plan this summer or next season, whatever name it is to add to this current core. Add to this current core.
I think they want to add to this current core before this summer. I think they finally understand that they have a 1, 2, 3. They have a big 3.
Yeah.
Now, can we find somebody who can play the Evan Fournier role, but give Thibodeau enough defense that he can trust him with minutes? Because that's what the issue is with Fournier. It's not that he can't shoot, but okay, if he goes cold, what does he give you?
Yeah.
It's the same issue with Cam Reddish. Like I said, when he makes those 1 or 2 plays and he uses his length and your eyes are popping and it's like, yeah, that's why this guy was the first-round draft pick. Yeah, but when those nights aren't happening for him, what does he bring to the table? Case in point, Jalen Brunson, toward the end of the 8-game winning streak and now even into this 5-game losing streak where he played in the first 3 games of it, he was starting to play like junk. His offense was off, but still he had value to the team because he was out there taking charges, he was out there directing the offense, he was out there taking care of the ball. So he wasn't scoring the ball. And this is something that Thibodeau says all the time. If you're not scoring the basketball, well, then rebound the basketball. If you're not rebounding the basketball, score the basketball. Play defense. Do something that's going to make your team better. And in the case of Fournier, in the case of Derrick Rose, in the case of Cam Reddish, if they're not doing what they do best, what do they bring? And Derrick Rose, he's just like in limbo right now. It's all gravy for Derrick Rose at this point. 2-time MVP, the injuries, the comebacks, and he tells you he's happy just to be here. And to me, perfect scenario. Ball can't come back, trade goes to Chicago. I don't know what you're going to get back for him, but that's where he needs to be for the final chapter in his career. They would love him there, and I think he would rise to the minute. He would rise to the occasion there. And he and DeRozan for a short span of like 25, 30 games, I think that'd be quite a dynamic duo with a healthy Caruso. You can make some things happen there. So, again, what do you bring if you ain't on your A game? And RJ Barrett has been, I'm sorry, he's been magnificent. He has been, he was on a run. He was on a tear just before he gets his finger gashed open. And Breen gave you some graphic description of what was going on with that hand.
Tendon.
Because, I mean, when we all saw it, it's like, I'm saying, what did he do, break a small bone in his hand or what? Because you didn't see blood dripping or anything. And Anthony Gonaga had that hand elevated, which indicated, okay, there's something going on with the blood here. There's something going on with the structure of the hand. And you come to find out that his finger was slashed open to the tendon. So, fortunately, they caught it. They sutured him up. But it's going to take a little while for that thing to heal up for him to come back. But before he got hurt, say what you want, he was shooting lights out. He was giving the Knicks what they needed on offense. What do you have, a 44-point game in the game before he got hurt? And a game that they lost? People
High expectations.
People that have a problem with Barrett, people that have a problem with Randle, do y'all really know basketball? These guys can play. R.J. Barrett can get to the rim against anybody in the league. And that was his MO coming out of Duke. And you're worried about him being a three-point shooter? Really? Although he has been knocking down some threes of late. Now this is obviously going to be a setback.
Yeah, he's definitely working his way in, and I never evaluate players in season, Bill. That's just me. I know Knicks fan base have a high expectation. I evaluate at the end of the season, Let Grimes play huge minutes all season, quickly, all of that. Let's see them, how they finish the season out. RJ started slow. He was working his way in. My expectations have tempered a bit from the 3rd overall pick. Just the trajectory of his career looks different. Not every player has the same trajectory as a Ja Morant. RJ Barrett's getting paid 25 mil. I see a pathway for him to live up to that contract.
Let me ask you a question.
He's not going to be the Knicks number one.
Just off of what you've seen this season, is he worth that money the Knicks are paying him this year?
In the recent play, yes. Yep. Not the way he started the season. Recently. Recently.
That's the nature of pro sports. Guys are going to be hot. Guys are going to be cold. We were ready to run Julius Randle out of town last year. And it's hard to argue that he hasn't been the best, most consistent player on this basketball team this year. With Brunson and Barrett a close second and third, Grimes most improved, and you saw it coming in Summer League. You saw it coming. If you watched him play in Summer League, and I'm not saying he was going to, the competition in Summer League is obviously not what it's going to be like mid-season NBA, playoffs NBA, not even close. But you saw the tendencies, you saw the ability, you saw the demonstration, and you saw the confidence. And as we all finally came to figure out, it was that foot injury that stole that player early in the season. Now the foot is right, and he's having some great games for the New York Knicks. He's a difference maker for this team. I always wanted to see him and Barrett on the floor together. And when they're on the floor together this year, I think a lot of good things have happened with this basketball team. And you add Brunson and Randle to that mix, all of a sudden now you've got a solid group of 5 players that you can run out there every night. I think it's a matter of figuring out the proper balance on the bench. When the Knicks went to Deuce McBride as that first guard off the bench, I said, okay, how long is this going to last? How long are they going to be able to sustain this? I mean, Deuce hustles. Deuce is now the guy who will go over every screen, because when he went under one last year, that's when he got in big trouble with Thibodeau, and that led to him sitting on the bench being last year's Cam Reddish, So, I mean, you've seen the improvement with him, but is that something that is sustainable? And I think now in this 5-game losing streak, maybe it's starting to look like it's not so sustainable. His offense has improved a little bit, and that was the early knock against the move. This guy's scoring like 3 points a game. What is he going to do? He's not going to make that big of a difference on defense. Yeah, he's gonna make guys work harder, but he's not stopping anybody. Grimes can stop some people, and he makes them work harder. And that's not to single Deuce McBride out, but that's one of the areas where the Knicks got to get better. You talked about it before with the Hartenstein-Sims situation. If you could make those guys one player, yikes, be great. But Jericho's gotten better. He's gotten better, and the thing that I was looking for him to get better at is rebounding in traffic. If there were 2 or 3 guys around him, he wasn't coming down with the rebound. Now, more and more, he starts to come down with that rebound. His confidence is there. He knows what to do offensively. He'll go out and commit a dumb foul every now and then. But Hartenstein is the guy that you traded for. Hartenstein is the guy you brought in here and gave a big contract. And the way it works in professional league, the guy that got the big contract, the guy that's getting paid, as long as he is of marginal use for your team, he's going to get run. Unlike Fournier, who's got a bigger contract than both of them combined, but again, he's not giving you that other thing. If he's not shooting, then what does he give you? So Hartenstein, as you mentioned, good rebounder. He's got length. He's not a defensive stalwart, but he'll get in the way, and he has that stretch ability. He can shoot from long range, which everybody's in love with. Everybody's talking about this kid, Wembanyama, whatever.
Wembanyama?
Yeah, Wembanyama. He's another 7'4" guard.
Yeah.
Do you need more of those in the NBA? I'm not a fan. You know, what he does is nice. Well, didn't Kevin Durant name what's his face the unicorn? How's that working? You can't do that in the NBA. They're not gonna let that happen. So, you know, what do I know?
It's the new generation, Bill. You're going to be shocked. You know, we saw the same. If our generation saw a Muggsy Bogues, we would have been like, wow. And this new generation's going to see a 7'8" guard at some point.
To me,
they're just getting taller and taller and taller.
And they've got more and more skill. And the game is allowed more for their skill. But to me, a guy that's 7'2", 7'3", 7'4", whatever. I mean, yeah. I'm interested to see the sustainability of Bol, because he's that guy right now in the league that's doing that. Okay, we saw Porzingis, and he still can't stay healthy. Guy spends more time injured than anything else. Why? Because he plays like he's a 7'2" guard. Your body is not built to do that. Anthony Davis, when he plays like a big man, he stays on the floor. But when he tries to be Anthony Davis, I'm this great ball handler and passer, and that's when he gets hurt. That's when he gets hurt. The NBA is, I always say about the NBA, they'll let you do what you can't do. What you can do, they'll stop you cold from doing it. And 7'2" guys trying to play on the perimeter, ain't one of them won a championship yet that I've seen.
So, a lot of RJ's knocks are, he looks like a similar player or the same player from the last few years. I've also got to talk about, he apparently didn't have much ball in the summer because of the contract situation. He couldn't play for Canada. What do you see moving ahead for RJ? What would you like to see his game? Where would you like to see his game grow? Well, if there is growth.
Coming into this season, what was the biggest knock on RJ? A, he's not a consistent three-point shooter. B, he's not a good free throw shooter. Last I checked, he's improved in both of those things. Now, if he can pick up his game just a half a notch defensively, I'm not talking about going from a 1.5 to a 4, but if he can go from a 1.5 to a 2.5 defensively, I'll take that guy. And I don't know if it's stopping the ball, if it's rebounding, if it's blocking shots, if it's just getting in the way a little bit more. Okay? That's what I want to see out of RJ. I'm fine with his offensive game. Because as I said before, he can get to the basket against just about anybody in this league. Anybody. Okay?
Yep.
And a lot of players can't do that. And you've seen him, you watched him over the last year plus get better with his right hand. He's left-handed. But now he'll butter you with his right hand like it's all right. On the handle, on the shot, you name it. And he's got that size. He can play bully ball with the best in this league. The best bully ball player in this league is Antetokounmpo. He's the best bully baller in the league. Okay?
Yep.
Everybody else is second. I don't care if you want to go to Randle, if you want to go to Barrett. I don't care. Wherever you want to go in the league. Huh? LeBron, absolutely. Okay? LeBron's an old bully baller from way back. 38 years old. That's hard to believe, isn't it? The time does fly when you're having fun.
I've just got a stat for you on that. Michael Jordan, at 40 years of age, played all 82 with Washington.
Yep.
I saw.
But he was a different Jordan, though. He wasn't that high-flying Jordan He was
Yeah.
a jump shooter then. He was pretty much a jump shooter. And that's fine because, he can still be an effective player doing that. So, again, these are the things I like about RJ. I like his bloodline. I like his temperament. I like his attitude. My wife says he has dead eyes. But, I like this kid. I thought the Knicks did the right thing by signing him to that contract. And I think he's paying off on that contract this year. And I think that when he gets back in the lineup, when that finger heals enough on his right hand, when that finger heals enough for him to do the things that he needs to do at that position, he might even come out with some kind of glove or something protective on it. I don't know. But still, I think you're going to see the same player that you saw that was putting up 44 a couple of games ago for the Knicks.
Yeah, I'm still high on RJ, but where I want to see his game grow is the playmaking. Like you mentioned, 6'7", has a tremendous. I believe he has tremendous potential to unlock playmaking ability. Like you said, he is a bully. Getting to the cup, although he doesn't get the whistles that he should at some times. But the shooting, I would expect that to improve year upon year in the league.
Yeah.
But the playmaking, he should be getting 6-7 assists. But what I want to ask you in the chat is, with usage, is there a situation where with Randle and Brunson and him as the third ball handling usage guy, is that going to hinder his growth? Should RJ Barrett be more on the ball?
As long as you have Jalen Brunson, he's not going to be on the ball. Jalen controls the offense when he's on the floor. At some points, I had envisioned Barrett at the point and Quentin Grimes at the 2. And I think you'll still see that at some points as this season continues to unfold. But now that you have a proven, established, veteran point guard, I think that his playmaking is not going to be, he won't be a primary playmaker. He might make a secondary pass, a hockey pass as they like to call it, to somebody that's wide open. But right now, he doesn't have the ball in his hands in that capacity. When he has the ball, you know where he's going. He's taking it to the rack, period. And how many times do you see 3 guys around him when he puts that ball on the rim? That's his job. That's what he does. And once in a while, he'll make a pass out of that. But to be that 6-7 assist guy in a game, I'm not so sure that that's going to happen with Brunson and now quickly developing into that guy. Because quickly, and Derrick Rose is taught him well. Because quickly was the number 2 guard last year. Rose was that first point guard off the bench. Well, now quickly has taken that role. He has embraced it and has developed it to the point that you saw what he did last night against San Antonio. And it's funny, as I'm watching the game with my wife early on, he's taking shots, and I keep saying that quickly doesn't shoot well on the road. Doesn't shoot well on the road. He doesn't shoot well.
Yeah.
No, he's not making that. He doesn't shoot. And he finishes with 36 points last night. So now let's see if he can sustain that. Doesn't have to be 36, but let's see if he can be a consistent 17, 18, 7 for 10 performer on the road from the field. That's his next challenge to me. I mean, at home, he's spectacular at home. But when the Knicks are on the road, he doesn't know that rim the way he knows the Garden rim. He's a different player. But last night he was outstanding.
Yeah, the Knicks are playing all their young drafted players. That's what I talk about with the Knicks fans about them wanting to see this team move ahead quicker, or a tank, get that game-changing talent through the draft. My argument is there's no correct way to build a winner in the NBA. There's teams that have drafted talent, absolutely. There's teams that have traded and incrementally improved year upon year and building stability, building a foundation as well. There's no correct way. There's 30 teams. It's difficult. Some of these players need reps, and we're playing our drafted players. So there's a joke around that this team's mid and this team's in purgatory, things like that. I'm looking at it more like there's growing pains along the way, but we're in a better position than we have been, Bill, in the last 2 decades.
The Knicks have gone in the last week from 6 to 9 in the conference. They were 6 on the strength of that 8-game winning streak. Now, are they going to have another winning streak as long this year? The numbers don't necessarily bear that out. But if they can play 600 basketball for the rest of the year, which is 3 of every 5 games, if you can go 3-2 every 5 games the rest of the year, I think people will be pretty pleased with that and will be pretty pleased with their position going into the postseason. As far as playing the young players, the numbers on the roster indicated that was going to happen this year because they had 3 guys with 10 years or more of NBA experience. 3 guys, Rose, Fournier, and Julius Randle. That's 3 guys out of 15. So it stands to reason that out of the other 12 guys, there's going to be like 6 or 7 of them that's going to get some playing time, and they're young kids. They're all with 4 years or less of experience. So that's a young team, and that dynamic, thankfully, has happened. There are young players on this team you can trust now. You can trust Quentin Grimes. You can trust Emmanuel Quickly. You can trust Jericho Sims in the spot if you need him there. That's 3 young players that you can trust. And I haven't even mentioned R.J. Barrett, who I told you going into the season, he was going to be their star. And they have 3 stars right now. And he's one of the 3. And he's young. So from a development standpoint, there's less for them to develop. Now they have to figure out how to close out games, how to guarantee wins. And a lot of that comes from what happens with those guys on the bench, Thibodeau and his assistants. That's where that next level of growth will come from. Because performance-wise, I think we're seeing about you're not going to see Quentin Grimes play games much better than what he played in Dallas. You're not.
Yep.
It's not his role on this team. He's a 3-and-D guy. So the 30-point nights, they aren't going to come often. But still in all, he's going to be counted on to knock down big shots and to play defense. And I think he's taken a quantum step, health being a big part of it. He's taken a quantum leap in that direction in what you've seen in the last 10 or so games. Emmanuel Quickly. He's not going to be as good as his teammate down in Philadelphia, who is sitting out with the injury issues right now with the foot. He's not going to be as good as that guy. But still, you've seen him flash on certain nights. It was a 16 rebound night. It was a 15 assist night. Last night was a 36-point night. So that guy is in there. It's just a matter of figuring out, okay, is he going to be my first guard off the bench? Is he going to be my 2 guard? Whatever. But those are good problems to have. And his defense has gotten better this year because he got stronger. He built out his body, and he trusts his body a little bit more now. So, I mean, we've seen some development. Problem is, last time the Knicks won an NBA championship, it was a different trophy, and Larry O'Brien was a commissioner. And rightly so, there's impatience there. Yep. But I think the period of not having a direction, the period of not knowing who's going to do what for you, now they have a core, or they're still building a core of players that you can trust. And we mentioned 5 of them frequently in this conversation. They've got that core now. So now what do you have to do to build out and support that core? Or maybe even introduce one more player, as you pointed out, that's better than that 5-man core that you have right now. That's the next hill for them to climb.
That is, in my opinion, because, they are looking at the situation with the salaries. A lot of these contracts, Bill, are the max guys on the Knicks aren't really max guys, full max. They're 25 mil. There's 3 of them. There's flexibility there to add a 4th guy.
And Leon Rose has done a good job with that, by the way. He's done a great job with that.
Yeah, compared to some of these bloated contracts around the NBA. Now, in my opinion, none of them are a number one guy on a championship team. Absolutely not. We're still moving towards that goal. Right now, we're a middle of the road team, but we're looking to see, obviously, a trade. I feel like they're trying to build through a trade or a free agent signing, not through the draft in terms of getting that top 5 pick. So with that said, there's needs on this team, but there's free agents coming up, and I think ultimately that's what this front office is going to be judged upon. Leon Rose, etc., Worldwide West, they weren't brought in here to build through the draft. Everyone knows that.
They do have 11 draft picks, like first round, second round. They got a bunch of them. So
yep.
Can they parlay any of that into getting that next role player? Because really, you go back to the championship Knicks, 3-3 ball. League was a little bit different, but they were built on defense and role players that turned into Hall of Famers. Well, Clyde Frazier was the all-round guy that they had. He was the one. Willis Reed, he was your big man handling stuff inside. He'd go outside and shoot. They added Dave DeBusschere, who was a good perimeter shooter and a great rebounder and a solid defender. All three of those guys could play defense. Then you had role players. By the time Earl Monroe got here, he was still a superstar, but he was a role player. He wasn't out there to do anything but score for you. Take some of the pressure off Clyde, score the basketball. Bill Bradley, one dimension on offense. Shoot the daylights out of the ball. They didn't have the 3-ball back then. He was a great 3-ball player, but he was a good defender. His weak spot was rebounding. But you get the picture that I'm building. They have role guys. And so now you've got the rim protector. You've got the playmaking point guard. You've got 2 bully ball players on offense. You've got a young 2 guard who can defend and shoot the 3. Now you need somebody to supplement that guy, in my opinion, because you've got other rebounders on the bench. You've got another playmaker on the bench. Can you get somebody to supplement that 3-and-D guy and somebody who is a dependable shot maker? Somebody on the level of a DeMar DeRozan who can do it from mid-range or 3? But somebody when you put the ball in their hands, that there's a 60% chance that it's going in the cylinder from some kind of way. That's the kind of guy that the Knicks need to trade, that the Knicks need to turn those 3 dead spots in the roster and some of those draft picks. That's what they need to turn that into.
Yep, you're right. Those 3 dead roster spots, that's what Leon Rose's target is going to be heading in. We're 500. We're not even at the halfway point of the season. I said people evaluate throughout the season too irrationally. There's no practice throughout an NBA season, right? You're not going to see players suddenly change their games. It's in the summer. They're still building chemistry. Jalen Brunson's been a huge addition. I'm cool with Jalen Brunson moving ahead. Yes, he has flaws, but ideally in my world, he's not the number one option for the next winning team.
He's a role player.
You saw what he could do next to Luka. Western Conference Finals, ladies and gentlemen, as the number 2 option.
And again, that's not he has that ability, but that's not what he is. That's not who he is.
Yeah.
He's a playmaker. He's a leader. He's a guy, again, you talk about bully ball. He plays bully ball. He likes to get you down in that paint, bang you around, bang that ball on the floor. But the problem comes in when teams make up their mind, okay, we're going to trap him. We're going to keep him up north of the free throw line. We're not going to allow him into the paint. And those are the teams that have the success against him. So when they employ that strategy, okay, what's plan B? Is it Barrett? Is it Randle? Is it Grimes? Is it that guy that's not here yet? So I mean, there are just so many different roles that come into this thing. And are the Knicks one of the elite teams? No, they're not Boston. No, they're not Milwaukee. And I tell you what, when Philly's right, no, they're not even Philly. Okay?
Yeah.
But when you drop down into that next echelon of teams, and I'm not so sure Miami's not in that second echelon now, even though they have the great Jimmy Butler. I'm not so sure Miami's not that next level down team from the top 3 or 4. And I guess grudgingly, I got to put Cleveland in that top echelon also.
Yeah. Yep.
So, I mean, and look at what those teams are. They are very specialized units. I think only Philadelphia, out of the group that I mentioned, Philadelphia and probably Boston, have the same kind of quality depth that the Knicks have. Although their quality depth is
Where
a little bit better, a little bit more quality.
Yes, this team's mediocre. I say it again. People say we're mid. This ain't a finished product, right?
No.
You can't say this is it. We are primed to make big swings either way. With signings, trades, all of that. I would judge it when they've done their all-in move. They haven't done their all-in move yet. And I also want to talk about the strategy of building through the draft. Philadelphia, the process, right? They got lucky with Joel Embiid, Markelle Fultz, Ben Simmons, everyone else that they got, Joel Embiid again, Zaire Smith, and they haven't won a chip yet.
And
the Phoenix Suns.
Out of all those guys that you mentioned, Embiid is the only one that's really can't miss. And how long did it take him before he became a force in the league? Took him like 3 years. Look at Giannis, same thing in Milwaukee. It takes 3 years for a guy to really become whatever it is he's going to become in this league. Then from that point is how much hard work he wants to take it to go to the next level.
Yeah, like I said, is building through the draft a good way to build a team? Absolutely. I'll never dispute that. But it's not a guarantee. The Phoenix Suns got lucky hitting on Devin Booker. They haven't won a chip yet. They've got CP3. They got DeAndre Ayton, the #1 overall pick. They still may never win a chip. So it's tough. The Knicks got their chance with Porzingis at 4, RJ at 3, and we needed to capitalize on the Porzingis pick a lot more. That didn't work out for us, but I think we're going the free agent trade route. Is anyone that you can see, Bill, that you feel would fit well on this team? Any names?
A lot of people like to talk about OG Anunoby up in Toronto, but Toronto is starting to make their move now, and I'm not so sure that dealing Anunoby would be in their best interest. I think.
Yeah.
And I can't single out the player. I can't single out the team. But I would think that the Knick savior, as it was, or that guy that's going to put him over the top, he's going to come from a team that ain't in it. The team that's going to take a couple of those draft picks off their hands, and maybe a Cam Reddish for that guy who's going to help push Grimes, elevate him to that next level, do what he can't do. Who that player is, I don't know. Because I'll tell you, I watch the Knicks and who they play against. Brooklyn's on a marvelous run right now.
Oh,
they are. They move themselves right behind Boston. They're very close to Boston. I think a game and a half, something like that, in the Eastern Conference. And who would have thunk a couple of weeks ago? But still, they have two of the best offensive players in the NBA. They have a puncher's chance every night they go out, and when they play defense, well, then they're almost damn near unbeatable, as we've seen over this 10-game winning streak. So, who is that player? What is that team? Who wants to do business with the Knicks? The league is very big now, and I'm sure in the messages people will come up with like 5 or 6 players that they should get. But just be mindful, all of you who are hashing out trade scenarios in your head, you're not going to give the other team your garbage and get something that's going to turn your season around.
yes.
Nobody's dealing from that standpoint anymore. Like I said, Cam Reddish, a couple of draft picks, and then when you get into the situation with both Rose and Fournier, they got big numbers that you got to cover contractually. Rose is for
Yep.
the rest of the season. I think Fournier is this year and next year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
But and that's like $18 million. So that's what you're trading from. That's so if you really want to try and figure out something, look at some of those bad teams. Look at some of those tail end teams. Like Detroit, you almost have to rule them out. Because A, you've dealt with them already, and B, they're not giving up anybody in their young core. You've dealt with Detroit already. So now you got to start to look in other places. And again, it's not going to be a superstar guy that's going to come. It's going to be another role player. But it's going to be a solid role player. And I think that's what you might even have to overpay to get somebody like that. But,
Yep.
I promise next time I'll be a little bit more proficient with looking at who these specific players might be. Because the deadline, I think, is February the 1st or somewhere around there, right around the All-Star break. So we got another couple of months to figure this out.
Yep. Like you said, Feb 10, I believe. And no doubt this Knicks team will make a move. I think it might not be that big move for this season. I think the off-season, something to watch, draft night. I think their aim is to accumulate picks, as many picks as possible, Bill, so that when that disgruntled guy becomes available, and Chat and Bill, we know every single year someone is going to be disgruntled at some point,
Here's a hypothetical for you. What if Trae Young became available? Would that be a fit on this team? Would that be a fit?
I think you could make room for Trae Young on any team. You could make room, but
how would he fit here?
With Brunson, he's not going to be a good fit next to Brunson.
Okay, and he's not going to be a good fit with this coach.
Yep.
He's not defending anybody. But there's a very real possibility Trae Young could become available this year. Very real.
Very real. Very real. Every team, the expectations flame out. There was a report today that the Lakers are mulling trading LeBron in the offseason.
LeBron is about it. He says he's 38. He wants to win. And that's something that you have to deal with. He got them a championship. Does he go back to Cleveland now and join that young group? I don't know. Does he go back to Miami and fortify them? I don't know. Because there's only a few places that he's going. Is he going to the LA Clippers? Really?
No.
I don't think that's going to happen.
No.
And a lot of people are still holding out hope that the Clippers are going to be, that gang that emerges from that Western Pack. But it says that Denver is real this year. Memphis with a healthy Ja Morant, they're real this year. They're both at the top of the conference. So, and who knows what's going to happen in Golden State if they ever get it straightened out. So, I mean, and even though Booker's not playing now, is this going to be their year? They're getting rid of Sarver. Somebody's going to pay $4 billion for that. I can't believe that. Yikes.
That's insane. what would the Knicks really be worth? I mean, we'd be getting to that $6 billion point, I reckon.
I think you might get more than that. I saw the story today where MSG net revenues are down, but the Knicks and the Rangers are doing big time. Business is booming, as Antonio Brown was saying. Business is booming for the Knicks and the Rangers. Not so much for the entire MSG family, but for the Knicks and the Rangers, off the chain. They are making money, hand over fist. So.
Yeah, and they're about to drop that MSG direct-to-consumer Knicks and Rangers streaming app.
Some interesting things going on in the streaming world. We're on YouTube now, and next year YouTube is going to be the home of Sunday Ticket in the NFL. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, there's YouTube Premium, which gets you all the NBA local coverage and all of that. But we got the trade deadline coming up. We got All-Star break. Let's touch base again after that.
I'm all in. I'll do more diligent research on what might be available in trades, because by the next time we talk, it might be coming down to nut cutting time.
Oh, trust me, absolutely. We're coming down the stretch of this season. Not even at the halfway point. It's been a crazy season. Is there anything else you'd like to get out today?
It's just like the overall tenor of the league is something to be concerned about with this load management thing. Something which flies in the face of what Tom Thibodeau's doing. John Madden used to always say, never mind the horse is blind, just load the wagon. And I'm telling you, Thibodeau loads it every night, for better or for worse. This load management thing that, I recently responded to somebody on Twitter. We were talking about that Knicks team and that winning streak that Toronto finally ended at 8. And it was the start of this 5-game losing streak in a game at the Garden.
Yeah.
And the thing about Toronto that I pointed out was Toronto had their top 3 guys. They were all in. They were all ready to go. I said, now, how many times in that 8-game winning streak did the Knicks face the top 1 and 2, never mind the top 1, 2, 3? And so that's going to be the case when they go against the Suns on Monday at Madison Square Garden. Booker's not going to be there. This is a tough little stretch they got coming up. Houston is the one they got to get, because after that it's the Suns, rematch with the Spurs, Toronto, who we talked about, is on the come, and Milwaukee, who is already among the elite. And if they ever get Chris Middleton back, look out.
Yeah, the Bucks are my favorite still. And the Celtics.
Those are one of the teams that gave Jalen Brunson problems because of their size. Holiday is a tremendous defender. You have him in the backcourt with Middleton and Giannis on the back line with Bobby Portis. That's a lot of big. That's a lot of big. It's a lot for any team to handle, even if Portis ain't shooting well. And I even mentioned Lopez. So, I mean, Milwaukee is, to me, they're the favorites in the East. No disrespect, Boston. But Milwaukee, because Boston, man, if Robert Williams can't play, they're a different team. They're a different team without no 44. Okay? They got nice pieces. Tatum has turned into that guy. Jalen Brown, he can't dribble the ball worth a damn, but he can knock down shots all night long. Marcus Smart, now that they got Brogdon, Brogdon is more of the prototypical point guard, and you still have Smart where you can plug and play wherever you need him at 1, 2, or 3, and he's going to give you great defense and he'll open 3 for you whenever. They're still a formidable team, but I just think Milwaukee, when they are complete, they are the best team in the East. So,
agree. And they're going to make upgrades. There's talk they have slight interest in Derrick Rose, maybe a guy like Cam. They might be looking to trade Grayson Allen, from what the early buzz was saying.
Don't bring Grayson Allen
here. Yeah.
I'm
not a fan.
We don't need that guy. But you know what? Guys with the bullseye on their back, they do well in New York. They do well in New York.
Marcus Morris,
Morris, go back a little bit farther. J.R. Smith, he was a guy always in somebody's crosshairs, man. Charles Oakley, you go back to the heyday. Charles Oakley, Anthony Mason, nobody liked those guys. We loved them here in New York. I don't know. Grayson Allen, no. Is he that much of an upgrade over Quentin Grimes? Nah, give me somebody else.
No, exactly. But yeah, you hit the nail, Bill, with the stretch coming up, ladies and gents. Let's see what happens. These games get tougher. The Knicks got to get healthy. But we'll touch base. It's been a pleasure to always have you on. Appreciate you and all the work that you've done for New York sports. And the fans, they love to hear your voice again. And enjoy the rest of your holidays. Happy New Year.
CT, as always, I appreciate you. I appreciate all your viewers, all the people that hit you up on Twitter. I'm looking at the chat now. 303 on the social chat since we've been here. That's pretty impressive number. But again, Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year. Whatever I missed, get it in there, and we'll see everybody in 2023. Always a pleasure, my man. And like I said, whenever you need me, you know where to find me.
Yep. Appreciate you, Bill. Chat soon. Peace.